Welcome to episode 232 of the Digital Tourism Show, sponsored by Rezdy. In this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Chris Atkin, the CEO of Rezdy, and we will be discussing the humble beginnings of Rezdy and what the future holds for this booking platform, but also discussing the impact that OTAs, online travel agents, are having on the industry. One not to be missed. So thanks, Chris. Thanks for taking the time to join me. I know you're a busy man, especially at the other side of the pond, as it were. So thanks for taking the time, being late at night or early morning for me, as it were.
It's my pleasure.
So
Great to be aboard.
So thank you. So in terms of yourself, now just before we go into the series of questions that I have, so in terms of yourself, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, so how did you become part of Rezdy? I know you've been with them for nearly 3 years now, I believe. So how did you become part of Rezdy, and how did you get into this industry?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm a newcomer to the travel industry as a whole. I'd spent my background in various digital businesses and media businesses, conference businesses, and so on. So very much sort of content and brand focused. And through that, I got connected through to some of the investors in Rezdy. And it said, Simon's looking for someone to come aboard and to sort of help with that next phase of growth. So, they had me pretty quickly, to be honest, in describing the experiences industry and Rezdy's position within it. And it's been a fantastic and a very fast-moving nearly 3 years in terms of getting here. And so, I became CEO a couple of years ago. Simon's still on the board and providing great advice. And it's really just taking his blueprint from 8 years ago when the business was started, and just trying to take it forward and try and give it the best chance of growing and being delivered within this really ever changing and still very rapidly maturing experiences industry. So it's great fun.
Excellent. Yeah, I imagine you've seen quite a lot of, as you mentioned, changes and things happening over the last 3 years, or just in that sort of short period of time. So, and part of that would be the sort of growth of the OTAs in terms of TripAdvisor, Get Your Guide, and all these other big players, and they're all wishing to become that sort of dominant force within, and a dominant brand in terms of consumers, etc. So. Especially recently and within the tours and activities sector, I know that we've obviously seen a whole load of growth, a lot of acquisitions, etc. But with things that have been happening recently in terms of CEOs being sort of leaving various companies and things happening and whole departments being sort of let go, etc. Do you think we're seeing the possible implosion of some of these OTAs, and coming from a booking platform like yourselves and a reservation system who are more independent compared to some of the others? Do you think we're seeing that implosion? Do you think their time has sort of come in a way?
Look, one of the things as an outsider coming into the space that it never quite made sense to me was the amount of kind of share of the conversation the OTAs get within experiences. When you look at, they have this dominance in hotels, obviously, and those that do it into flights and so on to a lesser degree. But they're not even double digits in terms of market share within experiences. Yet it's almost like the habit was there to talk about them as these dominant forces, and clearly they should be very well respected in terms of their scale and their size. But I don't think that they will achieve or they should be able to aspire to have the same level of dominance that, say, they have in hotels. So it is a different story for them in experiences. And as you say, they're hitting certain headwinds just at a macro level for their business because they've got their different models and they have different tie-ins to how Google's sort of changes affect them. But I think when you bring it down to experiences, there's quite a difference between the way that they've approached it. As you say, some have bought res platforms. Some have gone down the route of like Get Your Guide doing their originals. There's been different routes that they've gone down. I think what you see is that it's really hard. It's a really complex industry, and there's no turnkey solution. And whatever scale you've got or dominance you might have in other sectors, you can't necessarily translate it. But, I don't think there's going to be an implosion of these guys. I think that, if you look at what the opportunity they have, I think for me, it's around that connected trip. It's that, if they can start getting really strong loyalty and usership, if you will, of an app, then yes, they can absolutely extend that flight and that booking into the experiences one for those that are the full service OTAs. But if they're more of an experience focused OTA, then they've got to approach it in a different way. But it would be really interesting to play out. And as you can see, it's not easy for them to take it on, and they're seeing some of the challenges there. I think what will be interesting to see is, how a business like Expedia, for instance, that has that fuller service, start to explore that connected trip. That was something that was coming through in the conversation at the Expedia Partner Conference that I was at in December. How that changes, obviously, with the change in leadership, will be an interesting one. And then, obviously, how Viator is going to change as it maybe comes back out again into to stand on its own 2 feet, for the first time in quite a number of years. Well, again, would be an interesting one. How the role of Boken plays to that. Is it as critical to their longer term strategy as it was? So, I think it's really interesting things to watch. I don't expect the implosion of any of the OTAs in the near term, but I think that they're just going to have to work as hard as everyone else to be able to get share of the consumer, but equally as hard as everyone else in terms of trying to drive the automation of the industry that makes it easier for everyone to do business.
Yeah, and you make a very good point. A lot of these OTAs and their market share is, as you say, they're scraping the outskirts of the double digits. They're very good. They've got a very small market share compared to res systems and direct bookings and everything else. But there does seem to be a huge focus on them just now, and it's probably just because that they are trying to. I suppose their marketing is working in a certain aspect, that they're trying to get their brands out there as much as possible. I know personally, I've been quite outspoken on OTAs and how they conduct themselves with the operator, and that's not to say I'm against OTAs. I think they do have a part to play, a very important part to play. I just think they've maybe lost their way a little bit in the last year or so. But in terms, from my perspective, I'm more in favour of, and I imagine you guys will probably be as well, I'm more in favour of operators getting direct bookings and working that sort of angle and trying to grow their own brands and their own marketing, etc. So does Rezdy share that sort of vision in terms of their customers and what they're trying to do? And do you always wish to remain sort of an independent company and hopefully not an OTA maybe not coming in and looking to acquire you or anything like that? Do you share that sort of vision in terms of helping operators get their sort of direct bookings?
Yeah, like firstly, we're absolutely proud of our independence, and it's something that we think is really important for us to play the role that we play. And increasingly, we see ourselves as a platform for the industry rather than just the booking software. The booking software is what we're very well known for, and for that we focus on servicing the needs of the supplier. And as we know, there are really different needs in different places of the world, in different types of businesses. Is it a lifestyle business? Is it not? Is it a very direct focused business? Has it got a large amount of trade partners? And our job is really to give what the customer needs, what that operator needs. And so some of them, that's about really leaning into supporting them with their direct business. And with others, it's about helping them on the journey into working with partners. And that may be one or two OTAs, or it might be connecting in with a number of their local in-destination partners that they've had longer standing relationships with. And so it's not for us to choose what's best for people. We give them the connectivity, and where we can do, we try and give them the support to mean that they're using them the right way. And I think that, one hears a lot of, headlines, if you will, around anti-OTA or not. For me, what you need to be thinking about as an operator is what's the role they're playing. Are they going out there and bringing you a customer that you couldn't reach yourself? Or are they able to bring a volume that enables you to fill up a boat or fill up a bus that you wouldn't have done otherwise? If they're doing those two things for you, they're doing a valuable role for your business, and all your job to do is work out what the price of that is, and then that's the deal you do. And so in that sense, they're fantastic for you. But clearly, if you're working with the OTAs in a way that is cannibalizing what could have been your direct booking, then you're in trouble because you're losing significant margin in your business. And so we try to help that education and understanding, but ultimately provide you as the supplier or the operator the tools to run your business in whatever way you wish to.
Yeah, excellent. I completely agree. I think not having all your eggs in one basket, as it were, and spreading your reach out through OTAs, through direct bookings, through your own website, etc., is certainly the way to do it. I've just seen far too many businesses trying to focus themselves purely on a particular OTA or whatever that would be, and it could have a serious detriment to the business. And that's the part that we are trying to educate as well. So we're very much along the sort of same lines. So.
Absolutely. One of the things that we've always prided ourselves on, we've got a pretty much unparalleled distribution set of channels from the Rezdy platform. We've got over 200 distribution APIs. And so what that's saying is that, our job there is to say, look, we're giving you the choice. But part of that comes to educating. So don't make yourself one channel centric, because then you become very easily exploited, or you become vulnerable if there's a change in the strategy or the approach of those businesses. So what we encourage people to do is, first of all, think about what you want to achieve from it. How do you want to extend your business if it's not somewhere you've worked before? And so that's where, when we sit there, we can work with an operator, and in that conversation about how do you want to grow your business, help them with that next step. Is that helping them to use Rezdy's agent tool for them to connect into the 3 or 4 local businesses that are close enough to them in destination? Is it to set them up and make sure they're working well with Reserve with Google, or is it making sure that they've got a connectivity to Expedia or to Gatestar?
Yeah, no, completely agree. Completely agree. So Rezdy, as you mentioned, have been around for 8 to 10 years, which is in this sort of tech age, that's a long time. So what do you think is the future of reservation systems and booking systems like yourselves and platforms like yourself? No, I know from what we've seen and from we get asked when we get asked advice, etc. People are looking for things like dynamic pricing and personalization and all these other sort of things and features that people would love within res systems. So, what do you think is going to happen for Rezdy over, say, the next 10 years? What do you see as the future of Rezdy?
Yeah, so I think there's a few questions in there, and the first one about, let's talk about booking software systems alone. If you're the business that's providing that operating tool to an operator for them to run their business and to sell through their direct website, I think that we know there's hundreds and hundreds of systems around the world, and there's no way in the world that environment is sustainable. And so there is pressure on those businesses, and particularly as some of those have got larger and larger war chests, a Fair Harbor and a Boken, and have obviously got significant scale now, alongside the other big global operators like a Treksoft, a Checkfront, a Rezdy. And so if you're that next level down, I think the focus needs to be on how do I double down and be really clear how I can deliver really strong value to my operator. And so I think it should be great news for the operators, because the businesses that will be around in 5 years' time as booking software business will have got more and more specific about how they can deliver really strong value to the user. And those that don't, I think will find it really tough, because they won't have a good answer for retaining their customers.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I see the broader landscape from a booking software perspective. I don't expect to see any more booking software systems picked up by OTAs. I think those that want to, that thought that was a good play for them strategically have done that. I don't know, and I guess we'll never hear whether they feel happy with those acquisitions or whether it works for them strategically. But I just don't see them anymore going forward down that route. I think that the big focus for most of the OTAs that I see is about how do we get more supply, because what we're seeing is that lack of supply for those OTAs, meaning it's really hard for them to distinguish themselves from their competitors. And therefore, because the products are nearly all the same, that they're all trying to sell to the consumer, then they have to go down different routes to be able to differentiate. And then that's where we're starting to see some of this priced as a differentiator, which is no good for suppliers. So I think the more we can lean into getting more operators using booking software systems and good booking software systems, and the more that we can encourage them and to understand how to use OTAs effectively for their business, then everyone wins. The supplier wins, the technology providers win, and the OTAs win, and ultimately the traveler wins because they've got a better selection of great experiences to have when they go to a certain destination.
Yeah, no, again, I completely agree. And in terms of the industry as a whole, you know, do you ever think tours and activities will get to the stage where it's like hotels and flights, where a lot of the systems, there's a sort of standardized platform, because every system does their own things and it does things a little bit differently, and as we all know, tours and activity providers do a lot of things differently as well in each individual person. But do you ever think we'll get to a stage where there will be a sort of standardization across the industry?
Look, I think there's a couple of things in there as well. You know, as I say, I mentioned before, you know, Rezdy is a platform. You know, in the original vision that Simon had in setting the business up, in its DNA was to be both a tools business that enables us to provide booking software or to the agent in destination to make a booking, but at its heart be a channel manager, if you will. And so our B2B marketplace does that. We have, you know, nearly 100,000 products in our B2B marketplace, and not all of them come from Rezdy's booking software. They come from other integrations that we have on the supply side to other systems, whether they be the bigger ticketing systems, you know, like a Sentiment, like a Customer, like a Gateway, or whether they be more, if you will, competitor booking software systems, like you know, some that are starting. I can't mention names because we probably haven't announced any, but yeah, we've got a few that have just completed and got their first few customers live. And so from that perspective, we're starting to deliver that layer that you're talking about, that channel management layer that helps that more efficient connectivity between supply and demand within the industry that rises all boats.
Excellent.
So I think it's a critical next stage for the industry, and definitely something that we're focusing on in terms of you know, both connectivity on the supply side, but then also the tools that help people to use that capability effectively for their business. So you know, we're excited about you know, the growth that provides, and I think that the opportunity it's able to deliver to you know, to all of the players in the industry.
Excellent. No, good to hear. So, and if someone who has never or an operator out there is thinking, okay, well, let's try Rezdy, let's see what they like, and they don't know much about Rezdy, what do you think? What would be the one thing that you feel sets you apart compared to other platforms?
Yeah, look, I mean, coming into the industry, you know, I'm one of the very few, if not the only CEO of the bigger booking software systems that isn't a founder. So coming in new, I took my knowledge, if you will, from just talking to suppliers, you know. And so I'd go to Arrival and I'd just listen to people. I'd go to various destinations around the world. I mean, we work in a pretty cool industry to mean that you're working when you go to Hawaii or you're working when you go to Paris. And so just listening, you know, what are you seeing? What's the first, you know, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you're using our system? You know, I want to hear it, good or bad, because we can't change it if it's not great.
Yeah.
And you know, what we generally hear is that the critical thing people see is it becomes the brain of their business, if you will. It helps them to be able to take so much of the weight of running the day-to-day of the business. And so the two key things that I heard played back to me talking about customers were they love the platform nature of our business. So when you've got our booking software, you've got something to be able to manage your resources, drive your calendar, drive your direct booking through your website, but you've also got the tools to be able to take your walk-in bookings, you know, because of the point of sale integrations. But you've also got the ability to manage distribution, whether that be through the OTAs or whether it be through your local in destination agent partner. So you've got this real full service solution. And we see that being the gift that keeps on giving, if you will, as businesses go through the phases of using the Rezdy platform. But when we go back to the booking software specifically, the thing that I used to hear and still hear overwhelmingly is around the sophistication of the setup. You know, Hugo, one of our co-founders and CTO, he basically says no customer of the nearly 4,000 booking software customers that we have today has it set up in the same way. And so I think that that's the thing that an operator loves, when they start to see that they can tailor the platform to work for the needs of their specific business. Because as you say, every operator is different. You know, no two whale watching businesses are the same, because one's a business being grown to be able to buy that second boat or that third boat. And one's a lifestyle business. We were only going to be this size. I don't want it to be any bigger than it is today.
Yeah, excellent. So anyone who wanted to try Rezdy, I believe you guys do like a 21-day free trial, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So if you go up to our website, you can sign up for a trial, and what that will enable you to do is to start to have a play on the system and set up the product, set up your availability, and start to see how it works for you. But then also have a chat with one of our team, and they can start understanding what you're trying to achieve. Because it's quite a different need state. Someone who's moving from pen and paper to use the system for the first time, where they just want to say, but they need to take that leap of faith, if you will, to set things up and trust that they can take that online booking. And then it's quite different if someone's already used the system. They've started to realize what some of the limitations are, how it isn't working for their business. I use the analogy of when you first buy a mobile phone. When you have your very first mobile phone, you're just delighted that you can walk around in the park and make a phone call. But then when you buy your second mobile phone, you've got you're a much more sophisticated user. You know whether you're using it to watch video. You know whether you're typing a lot of emails and where the keyboard needs to be a certain thing. You know whether you need a load of memory on it, because you're in the olden days you were storing music on it, and you're a much more sophisticated purchaser. And we definitely see exactly the same thing in booking software as well. The best way of learning what you need is to get your first system, whatever it is, and know whether it works for you or not.
Perfect. I love that analogy. That's a great analogy. Well, Chris, I know you're a busy man, like I say, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk to me, and hopefully the listeners and the viewers that will be watching this podcast will get a lot of good insights from you. And if they want to know any more about Rezdy, just pop over to Rezdy.com, and I'm sure they'll find out more information there.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I enjoyed it. I'll see you in Berlin in 10 days.
Yes, 10 days. It's fast approaching, but look forward to it. And let's meet up over a beer or a glass of wine.
Sounds like a good plan.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Chris.
Cheers.
I appreciate it.
No worries. Have a good day.